racing. Without a doubt, the most risky sport out there. While there's a risk in other sports like the MLB, NBA, and the NFL, the danger level doesn't compare to auto racing. A human being is climbing into a moving machine that can reach speeds up to 180 to possibly 230 miles per hour. Crashing at those speeds without a doubt usually leads to injuries and possibly death. It's a huge risk that drivers take multiple times, many times. Drivers deciding to take this risk for many years. A race car driver's career usually lasts 15 to 20 years. And these crazy people decide to race that long because it's a simple reason. They love racing. When drivers are strapping into a race car, they are in for a ride, but it's a ride that's in their control. The steering wheel, gas pedal, and the brake pedal is at a driver's disposal, but it is up to them of how they manage those things. Driving a race car is already a tough task to begin with. Making laps by yourself is one thing. If you can make laps without hitting the wall, congratulations. If you can make fast laps, congratulations. Now try doing that with multiple cars around you and try beating those cars that you're racing against. Yeah, it's not easy. Going fast in a race car is a challenge, but racing against other people is a whole different beast. Even if you got control of your race car, you don't know how others around you drive. It's kind of like driving on the street, but except you're racing and you're going well over 100 miles per hour. In auto racing, you're trying to beat your opponents, yeah, but you're also trying to take care of each other. That's the hope that is. Some drivers have aggressive driving styles. They may attempt to make a pass in an area that's really risky. They may try to drive into a corner really deep, or they may block. Blocking in auto racing is very risky, so risky that some motorsports don't even allow it. It's one thing to try to defend your position, but if someone has a big run on you and you attempt to block, it's a recipe for disaster. That explains why motorsports like INDYCAR and Formula 1 doesn't allow blocking. If a driver chooses to do so, they will be penalized. But there's motorsports that allows blocking, insert NASCAR. NASCAR has always been a contact motorsports compared to Formula 1 and INDYCAR. It's been like that since the very beginning. NASCAR for the most part won't penalize the driver for beating and banging and also blocking. Unless you pull a Matt Kenseth. I mentioned earlier that the hope is drivers out there competing can take care of each other, and that's always been present in auto racing. Formula 1, INDYCAR, and other forms of auto racing, and NASCAR. Well, I don't know about NASCAR, not anymore at least. In recent years, NASCAR drivers just don't seem to care about taking care of each other on the track anymore, and it's something that I've noticed within the past half a decade. There seems to be no such thing as a driver code anymore. Back in the day, drivers raced with respect. They raced hard, but they never stepped over the line. Drivers would give and take and actually think of what they're doing. Drivers wouldn't make boneheaded moves, and if they did, they would have to suffer the consequences. Drivers back in the day wasn't about to tolerate a driver racing carelessly. They took this very seriously, especially competitors like Rusty Wallace, who made a speech in the drivers meeting the morning of the 1994 Daytona 500, basically telling his opponents to use their head, think before you make a move on the track. That's the problem with majority of today's drivers. They put their cars in positions to where it can end a lot of people's days. Every driver needs to be smart no matter what track they go to, especially the two big super speedways of Daytona and Talladega. These two tracks are by far the most dangerous tracks NASCAR goes to. Cars in big packs, consistently hitting 190 miles per hour, and one little mistake can cause the big one. Drivers hate super speedway racing because they aren't in control of their own destiny. Certain drivers will actually be driving a smart race and will still get taken out all because of someone's mistake. We've seen mistakes be made at super speedway races plenty of times, even when driver code was present. Just go watch a Daytona or Talladega race from the 90s and there's a good chance you will see a big wreck because of a driver mistake. Driver code, something that has slowly gone away over recent years. Today we see a bunch of drivers that make a lot of dumb decisions, just completely stepping over the line. When did this start? Who started it? Two drivers that debuted in the Cup Series in 2009, Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano. These two drivers are very accomplished. Both have a championship and both have over 25 career wins. But along the way, they have pissed a lot of drivers off. In general, they both have shown over aggressiveness multiple times, but that aggressiveness has led to success in their careers. Do whatever you can to win mentality, which was started by these two drivers. Young and upcoming drivers saw the success that these two were having and proceeded to drive really aggressive and do whatever it takes to win. As the 2010s went on, older drivers like Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Greg Biffle, Carl Edwards, Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Casey Kane, just to name a few, retired. And with drivers retiring, new drivers come in, and these new drivers are completely different from the previous generation of drivers. The main thing among this group is the lack of respect. When I look at today's Cup roster, I'll say 70% of the drivers are ultra aggressive. This 70% is drivers that came into the Cup Series in the 2010s. That many super aggressive drivers in the field means that the super speedway races will be wreckfest, and they sure have. Daytona and Talladega races have become demolition derbies within the past half a decade. Yeah, super speedway racing has always consisted of big wrecks, but not multiple big wrecks in one race. Not to mention, this happens consistently now. When the first big wreck happens, you sit there and say to yourself, well, that won't be the last one, and you're usually spot on. No joke, 6 to 12 cars usually finish these races most of the time. It's honestly been like this since 2017. But what's funny about super speedway racing nowadays is that overly aggressive wins you races or provides good finishes. The most successful super speedway drivers are guys like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, and Tyler Reddick. Then there's guys that aren't really that successful but try to be aggressive and it just doesn't work out. Sometimes even making moves that for sure won't work and it results in a wreck. Most people will quickly point to the racing package for the reason why we see so many wrecks at the super speedways. But the package NASCAR brings ain't the problem. Like stated before, we've been seeing demolition derby plate races since 2017. In 2017 and 2018, NASCAR was using a completely different package. One of the most noticeable things about that package was the air bubble, which basically kept the cars from bump drafting for the most part. Fast forward to 2019 where the closing rate is pretty significant, but the car is more stable because of the larger rear spoiler, basically more downforce. The package with the huge closing rates aren't causing the wrecks, it's on the drivers just being overly aggressive. Back in 2001, there was a similar package they ran at super speedways and we didn't see nowhere near the amount of wrecks that we see now. Hell, the 2001 spring Talladega race went caution free. The winner of that race, Bobby Hamilton, said, and I quote, "I'm really proud of the people we raced against. This makes you proud to be in Winston Cup." The respect level was very high between the competitors during that time period. Nowadays, after a big wreck happens, they'll say, hey, that's super speedway racing, shrug their shoulders and move on. Nobody really holds anyone accountable anymore. That seriously needs to change. These cars nowadays are really safe. There hasn't been a death in the top 3 series in NASCAR since 2001 when Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s tragic accident happened. Drivers got this thought in their head thinking that they can't get hurt because of how safe the cars are, but that's not a guarantee. We haven't seen a death in 20 years, but there have been a ton of injuries and some scary close calls, like the Ryan Newman wreck in the 2020 Daytona 500.
Outside to the inside. Here comes Hamlin up the outside. Wow. Crash into the wall, into the air. Goes Newman.
Upside down.
In a shower of sparks on his roof, Ryan Newman comes across the line, 4th. And comes to rest.
A wreck that scared the entire sport. After Newman's scary accident, he remained in the car for a very long time. It got really scary when the medical crew put up the black walls, which is to cover up an accident. For a few hours, we thought that we lost Ryan Newman, but fortunately, he survived the wreck. That accident proved that the cars aren't as safe. Safety has come a long way in NASCAR, but you still can get seriously hurt. So you would think after Newman's accident, drivers would start to show more discipline, right? No. We still see dumb moves being made that causes multi-car pileups. Drivers not holding each other accountable and claiming that it's part of super speedway racing. So when the driver's gonna learn to show respect on the track? I will hope that it doesn't have to result in the driver losing his or her life. Someone needs to pull a Rusty Wallace and simply tell these drivers to use their head. Do it at a drivers meeting before the race where all the drivers are present so the message is delivered to all drivers. Someone like a Kevin Harvick, a Denny Hamlin, or Kurt Busch should seriously do this, and then maybe we can start to see drivers show each other respect on the track. I also think that the knockout style playoff format and stages doesn't help either. These things in place make drivers do desperate things like trying to score stage points and pick up a position on track to advance to the next round of the playoffs, and encourage drivers to counter race dirty, and we've seen it happen plenty of times. But the problem overall is the drivers. There's clearly a lack of respect out there on the track, and hopefully that changes ASAP. Yes, you can race hard, but don't step over the line. There's a lot of talented drivers in Cup right now, but what a lot of them need to learn is one thing: respect. Race with more respect going forward.